There's a development in the story to tell you about. It's being reported by the Wall Street Journal, which cites multiple administration officials in reporting that Border Patrol Commander Gregor Bovino will imminently leave Minnesota along with some of his agents. That's according to Trump administration officials. Bovino had emerged as this is the Wall Street Journal's reporting, quote, Bovino had emerged as the public face of the Trump administration's immigration enforcement activity in the state, accompanying agents on operations. Quote, following the fatal shooting over the weekend of Alex Preddy by a Border Patrol agent, Trump has signaled a willingness to wind down some of the administration's operations there. Also in the Wall Street Journal, quote, on Monday, the president said Tom Homan, his Border Czar, would travel to the state. Michelle Norris is still with us. Michelle, importantly, Gregor Bovino had been the subject of a judge's injunction to stop using tear gas against protesters. That judge saying that it was unconstitutional. A subsequent judge stayed that order, but he has been, at least by that judge, recognized as using tactics that denied U.S. citizens and others their rights, and now he is leaving Minneapolis. My sense is that this will be good news to a degree, but that as long as he's out there terrorizing other communities, no one will rest easy.
It's interesting. I think we're showing pictures of them there, where he actually hurled a canister of this chemical irritant into a crowd himself after the judge had told him that that this was out of bounds. And you would think that after something like that, he might pull back, an action like that. He might not participate in something like that. He's become the face of something that is very unpopular, not just in the state of Minnesota, but throughout the entire country. What we really need to watch closely is this just changing, the leadership at the top of this operation, or does it portend a change in tactical operations? When he leaves, well, a large number of the CPB agents leave with him. The officials who normally are engaged in a much more pugilistic kind of enforcement at the border, because they're dealing in that case with cartels and with traffickers. That kind of enforcement doesn't really have a place in urban America where you're doing interior operations. So will we see, a change in procedures that follows a change in leadership? I know that that's what people in Minnesota are hoping for, but I'm not exactly certain of whether that's going to happen now that Homan comes, because Homan has been engaged in, some pretty pugilistic rhetoric himself. And he, like Bovino, likes to be out in the field, out with the agents as they're involved in these actions. We've seen that in other places. Will he pull back and perhaps try to work more closely with the city? And will he be willing to work more closely with local law enforcement? And that's another big question that that people are going to be watching very carefully. Will he work with the law enforcement in Minneapolis, St. Paul, the surrounding suburbs, and the rural areas where these ICE operations and Border Patrol operations are taking place?
Michelle, it's amazing to me, though, that the laws of relativity hold when a community in a country are terrorized, right? Only Greg Bovino makes Tom Homan a good news story. Tom Homan, the subject of some incredible reporting, including from our colleagues, about a $50,000 bag of cash, an investigation under the Department of Justice under two administrations, reported to have been called off at the change of administrations from President Biden to President Trump, and someone who, in an interview with our colleague Jacob Soboroff, said, quote, people will die, in talking about the ICE activity in Los Angeles.
I was speaking to someone in law enforcement, and they made a really interesting point about morale within the ranks. There may be an assumption that the people who are involved in the aggressive immigration enforcement in Minnesota may be doing this with a certain degree of bravado or gusto, but they're in a tough spot. They're in a place where people don't want them. Honking horns and blowing whistles, and not necessarily impeding them, but recording them, as we talked about, and making it clear everywhere they go. They see ICE out signs, they see profanity. Get the hell out of here. The person at the top is responsible to a great degree for the morale within the ranks of a law enforcement organization, and that is if you're dealing in a volatile moment, you want the right person in that position. And Greg Bovino. It's not clear that he was the right person. Now that he's leaving, it's not clear that Tom Homan is the right person. But having the right person there would go a long way toward creating a degree of sanity and stability in a state that really, really needs it right now.